Happy Thursday, Sam.
Hello.
Welcome back, Tianan. Give folks another couple minutes and then we'll go ahead and kick this thing off. All right, we've probably got enough folks here to kick this thing off now. I only threw one item in the actionable agenda. And let's see. Yeah, we need one more review on it. And Tianan, if you got a chance, I think you're on the maintainer list over there. This is over in the OCI conformance repo, which I think most of us completely ignore. And it's dependent upon normally I would ignore it or just blindly kind of approve it. And I think we did kind of blindly approve some of the previous ones over here. And it looks like it messed up the Go mod file on a previous one. So this one I said, even though it's not really vulnerable, probably makes sense to approve this one just to fix the Go mod file. It's fixing the Go version at the top in addition to bumping another version. So hopefully that's an easy approve. And otherwise, I only threw one thing on the agenda, which was to chat about working groups. Feel like we've had a handful of them go through. Um, well, two of them have actually gone through. We've had the refers working group, and then we've got the FreeBSD, which I'm pretty sure has completed. I don't know if we need to do any wrap up task on that. I haven't gone back and looked at any of the TOB stuff to see if we have to do anything over there to formally say it's done. But they did their merge over to the runtime spec. And my impression is that they are all finished up. Just looking at their notes, they said they were last meeting. So I think we got two done. We've got a couple that are sitting out in indefinite deferral state. I think image compatibility is really done. Sam, jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in about FreeBSD. As I was out, for a while, I was out for a bunch of the FreeBSD stuff too. It does look like the main section of the FreeBSD work is done. This is sort of the initial merge of a bunch of FreeBSD parameters into the runtime spec. At least for me, I still see places where there could be more work. And so I do plan to follow up with the other people involved on the FreeBSD side to see if they're interested in doing that now or if we disband the working group and then reform it later if we need to at that point. There are some things that could be done sort of on the image spec side, just given the way that FreeBSD does images, it's kind of different. There's some things that could be still done on the runtime side because we didn't really model everything possible. We just modeled like some of the things that can be done with jails. So I don't know that it's definitely done, but it's at least the first tranche of it is done.
Yeah. You're muted, Brandon.
Thanks, Tianon. I was making my comment just looking at the November 3rd notes where they were saying this is the last call. Thanks, everybody, as the last note over there. So if they got more to put in, that would be
Yeah.
awesome.
We discussed this in this call a few weeks ago without Sam here. And Derek was on the line, and we talked about OS version and platform matchers and how FreeBSD probably needs something there. But our read on the call of the spec was that there aren't like spec language changes necessary, but maybe just clarification similar to what we did for the architecture variants of like, here's what it means if you set OS version on FreeBSD, and here's some examples of how that should be set if you want to create your own FreeBSD images. But I'm very curious to learn more about what you have in mind, Sam. So I will wait for your contributions.
Cool.
That was a really long way to say, yeah, I agree. There's a little bit more to do here in the OCI specifically.
So that might kind of get us into the where I was going with this, which is we've got a couple. One of them finished on, I can't think of the right word to describe it, but I think there's been concerns raised after the fact when we merged the refer stuff. Don't think we know that's been raised. FreeBSD went ahead and said we're done. We merged it, and we've got comments here saying, well, maybe not done. We got a couple others that are indefinitely paused. We've got one that's sitting out there in a queued state. The alt working group, I think we're stalled, waiting for someone to write all the spec verbiage. Nobody wants to spend the time writing that. The image compatibility, that largely dispersed. If Jory ever jumps on, I'm going to tell her to get the thing off the counter because we haven't had any discussions over there for a year plus. They went off. One person is no longer doing this at all. So one person has kind of moved on. And other folks are running this over on the Kubernetes side. So nothing even on the OCI side we're looking at right now. So given that reputation of us on working groups, I just kind of wanted to throw out there saying, how can we improve this? How can we make it better? What are the lessons learned? What are some productive things we can do to, make the working groups a more positive experience? Complete crickets on that, huh?
I don't
Because that was,
know if I have something nice to say, so I'm opting to say nothing at all instead.
I mean, this could be the venting thing, but I just want to make sure that if you want to vent and say this is everything that was terrible about it, that we can at least turn it into, and what next? What do we do to fix it?
Review by committee is generally more successful than design by committee. And I feel like our working groups to now have been a lot more of the latter and less of the former.
So you want to have more people looking at the output, assessing it, but have fewer people involved in the design of it. That's what you're saying.
I want to see more proving out of thoughts and ideas before they're proposed as specifications.
So that really jumps into one of the friction points we had when we were pushing out the refers, which was we had a lot of buy-in from groups that wanted this. We didn't have much buy-in from groups that wanted to be the first to implement it. And that it came down to the 999 when that got pulled out, that everybody said, okay, we're not going to spend the effort to develop this until OCI approves it. So we had a trailing spec with trailing reference implementations. That's circular logic that we're not going to be able to make work. So somebody has to jump first. And I don't know if there's a way we can say OCI never jumps first. We kind of took a halfway point there, saying we had a couple of implementations that, went in advance, but they weren't the big ones. They weren't the big clouds. But we did hear from the big clouds that said, we tested this internally. It looks good. We like it. Go ahead and approve it. Not everybody, but we did have a couple of them. But I don't know how we go from that situation to try to get a scenario where we get where you're looking for. And I'd love to have where you're looking for, which is get more of the ecosystem out there trying this stuff out before we standardize it. That would be awesome if we could. Sam, please jump
I,
in.
I think that really could just be like something up to the spec maintainers. If as spec maintainers, you want to make sure that the spec is actually a trailing spec and is modeling things that actually exist, I think just don't merge things until they do. And that's a rule that the spec maintainers can decide to make.
So where's the balance there, especially when refers was getting merged? We had multiple maintainers in there that were involved in the working group, enough to make it a mergeable thing. Particularly when they were, we had some people representing some major registries out there that said, this is good to go. Please, we want it. Ram, jump in.
Yeah, this discussion about trailing specs, right? So at least the way it has happened is various folks come up with various ideas, various implementations, and come to OCI and say, "Hey, find a common theme." And that is, and I think people take the standardization from OCI as a blessing, as a license to go forward with it, right? Until then, they will not touch anything. So OCI is in a very weird place. It's not really trailing, so to speak. It's trailing maybe in terms of the ideas, but it is a leading spec in terms of an official blessing. So it's a I don't see there is any way around it. We put the spec out again in good faith. We get feedback or blowback, whatever it is, and then we fix it and move forward.
I feel like it's even more awkward when some of the implementations that were leading us in the past have switched places and said, okay, we no longer have the maintainers to run this thing. We're kind of skeleton crew to make anything happen. So we're just going to take a step back and just be a trailing implementation that used to be a leading implementation. So that adds to a lot of the complication, I think.
So I think the best, at least in my opinion, right? So the best course forward is to take feedback from the community, see what has worked so far, what has not worked so far, and then fix it. I think make another iteration of it. The whole point of this standards body is the value it provides is in the consensus. it may not be technically superior or whatever, right? The greater value is in the consensus, so that all the various moving parts, various stakeholders, they can interoperate with each other. I think that is the value the standards body brings. So I think the to take Tianan's feedback, right? So I mean, basically, let's look at what's not working and let's try to fix it.
I mean, personally, when I know that we've merged some of the stuff and we come back later on and say, look, we found a gap here, we need to fix it. I've seen that as okay, that's just a natural progression of more people implemented it. We found gaps and it's time to fix it. I don't want us to assume that that is a failure of the working group. And I feel like that's some of the current discussion right now as we look at this and say, oh, there was a gap. We shouldn't have ever merged the working group stuff. And I don't take that extreme view. All right. Well, that was all I had on that one. If there are thoughts on how we can make this better, let's get it written down. Let's try to put a PR over on the TOB to make this a better process because, I'd like to see it improved. If there are challenges out there that need to be improved, let's make it happen. I think there's also debates on whether or not things should be working groups. We put the author over there as a working group, and I don't know if author really needs to be a working group. That could just be a PR and distribution spec. Kind of similar to what we're doing to the rework of the tag listing right now. So some of that can be a debate as well. All right. Any other topics people want to chat about today? Hey, Sajay, coming in just as we're potentially wrapping up here.
Oh, sorry about that.
No worries. The discussion we were having is there anything that we should do to improve working groups? And we kind of ran through debating between OCI being a leading versus a trailing spec. We try to be a trailing spec, but then we've got all the implementations around us that want to be trailing implementations on top of a trailing spec. And you get circular logic there. And we've had periodic debates on whether things should have been pushed through the process as a working group and whether they should have been merged when they were merged and whatnot. So having a little bit of an open discussion of how we can improve working groups.
Yeah, Mike is not on this one, right? Mike is the one who's always been enthusiastic about this.
Yeah, different people have all kinds of different opinions. But I was just kind of leaving an open floor if people had ideas of things they'd like to see improved. Make an open space here. Let's get it noted down. Let's make a PR over to the TOB repo so that we can track of what needs to get improved over there. Just trying to make it a productive discussion if we could.
Fair enough.
But other than that, we are out of agenda topics today. So if there was anything that you wanted to chat about, anything anybody else wants to chat about, we got a few minutes here. I agree with you, Rom. We're both a leader and a trailer. Depends on which project you're looking at. All right, going once, going twice. Sajay, good to see you for all of like 30 seconds here. Great chat with everybody else. We'll be back not next week. It's going to be Thanksgiving holiday, but the week after. We'll see you there. So
Happy Thanksgiving, folks.
happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Cheers, all.
Bye.